October 11th Design Review Committee hearing. We will hear item number 2. And item number 3 was withdrawn. So it'll just be item number 2 tonight. So we will see you in 13 or so minutes.
The WD doesn't require any kind of motion.
It does not.
All right.
I don't believe it does. I'll check with Rob, but no, I don't think so. Thanks.
Right, good evening. I'd like to call the September 13th Design Review Committee meeting to order. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Here.
Rudine,
Here,
Marsh,
Here.
Aguilar,
Here.
Zuckerman,
Here.
Erstad,
Here.
all present.
Great, thank you very much. At this time, I'd take a motion on the Design Review Committee minutes work session for August 9th, 2023, and the Design Review Committee meeting minutes for August 9th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we accept the August 9th meeting minutes for both the executive session and regular session.
So moved. Discussion?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Simple. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
Rudine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Zuckerman,
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Erstad.
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 abstain, motion carries.
We have one item up for a deferral tonight. It's item number 1. It's DRH 23-00193. Location is to be determined on Gowan Road. It's for the construction of 2 new warehouse buildings totaling approximately 410,000 square feet with associated site improvements on a property in an M1D zone. This item will be deferred to the October 11th date. Is there any member of the audience wishing to speak to this item who cannot make this October 11th, 2023 date? Seeing none in the audience, any online, Josh? Thank you. And with that, that concludes our items for deferral, and I would take a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move the DRH 23-00193 be deferred to the October 11th meeting.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Christina, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
Rudine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar, Zuckerman,
Aye.
Erstad,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much. First time we'll be considering for tonight, hearing tonight is item number 2. It's DRH 23-00231, location 9177 South Federal Way. With that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members and everyone here tonight. This is an application to construct an approximately 48,000 square foot single-story industrial building with associated site improvements at 9177 South Federal Way. The subject property is located between I-84 and South Federal Way, approximately 1.5 miles south of Gowan Road. The surrounding area is primarily comprised of industrial developments with Micron Technology on the east side of Federal Way and Winco Foods to the west of I-84. The applicant is proposing 2 driveways onto South Federal Way. One is aligned with South Gigabit Lane, which is approved by SHD and city. The other is located in the southern end of the property, which is not supported by either SHD or City of Boise. We will have a chance to discuss this in greater detail at the end of the presentation. The applicant proposes 54 parking stalls on the site, and 3 accessible stores are provided as per city's requirements. Currently, there is no existing sidewalk on the subject property. The applicant has proposed a detached 6-foot wide public sidewalk to be located along South Federal Way. They're also proposing an internal pathway connection extending from the proposed sidewalk to the main office entrance. And 6 bicycle parking are to be located also near the main entrance as well. Overall, the landscape plan is well thought after. It provides a seasonal mix of plant species for the street perimeters as well as the main entrance area. It also includes drought-tolerant grass mixes for all other planting buffers. There appears to be 9 existing trees situated on the subject site. They are proposed to be removed. However, there is no report submitted by a certified arborist on the existing conditions of the trees. So staff recommends that the applicant to work with a arborist on the existing tree evaluation and a mitigation plan for the proposed removal. The building design is similar to other industrial buildings that have been constructed in this area of Boise. The massing in the design is appropriate for an industrial zone. And this is a rendering of the main office entrance. And there are the east elevations, which is fronting South Federal Way, west elevation fronting I-84. The south and north elevation, both are facing other industrial uses. The applicant would like to discuss one of the recommended conditions of the approval. The planning team has recommended the applicant to close the proposed second driveway onto South Federal Way located 385 foot south of Gigabit Lane. The planning team believes that there is insufficient evidence to support a second driveway, and also the proposed driveway does not meet ACHD's policy. Currently, there are 2 driveways. The first one is approved access aligned with South Gigabit Lane, and is approved and supported by ACHD and City of Boise. ACHD requires signals to be installed at this location. Therefore, this is going to be a signaled intersection. According to their policy, any other access need to be placed with a minimum distance threshold of 660 feet. There is also an existing unpaved driveway located at the number 2 location. According to ACHD's policy, any other access needs to be placed with a minimum distance threshold of 380 feet. Number 3 is where the proposed second driveway is located. There are a few reasons why staff recommend the close of the access. The first reason is because according to the traffic impact analysis submitted by the applicant, it shows that the daily traffic generated by the proposed industrial use will generate about less than 500 trips per day. ACHD's policy will support or require a second driveway if the daily uses exceed 5,000 vehicles per day. Therefore, there is not enough evidence to support the need of a second driveway there. Second, the minimum distance to the above approved access 1 is measured from center line to center line at 385 feet, which is shorter than the required 660 foot. Also, the minimum distance to the existing access, the number 2, which is the unpaved access, is measured from center line to center line at 373, which is shorter than the required minimum of 380 feet. Finally, staff believes that there's also an adequate amount of space on the northern side of the property for the required truck maneuvers. With that, staff move to approve DRH 23-00231 as recommended in the findings of fact, conclusion of law, and the recommended condition of approval noted below. That's the end of my presentation. I remain standing if you have any further questions.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Any questions for staff at the moment? No. Thank you very much. Is the applicant present? And if you would please state your name and address for the record. I can.
My name is David Obie. Address is 4590 Nicole Court, Missoula, Montana. So, good evening. Cushing Terrell was employed by Modern Machinery to help design this facility here in Boise. Like to introduce the rest of our team. We have somebody here from the owner side, Jason Watkins, and Josh Shiverick, here the project manager with Cushing Terrell here in town. Like to start with just kind of a description of what Modern Machinery does and what this facility is attempting to provide for the neighborhood here, the municipality. So Modern Machinery is a reseller and repair service for heavy equipment. So they are the Komatsu dealer. As you saw in the images, there is going to be 12 shop bays at the north end of this facility, as well as a potential expansion for 4 additional bays out further to the north. Just trying to figure out the truck access route. So knowing that the building needs to expand in the future if needed, that's one of the big things here. So they also provide rental equipment for various construction companies, so they can come in and get something that instead of buying one in full. So as Catherine indicated, we have been in for an annexation and rezone. The parcel did previously contain 13 individual parcels that has been aggregated together and gone through a minor subdivision where it was broken up into 2 parcels. The northern parcel, because the driveways were separated at the 380 feet, it seemed to make sense at that time to allow flexibility of that to have that become an office building or something depending on what happens with the economy. So that zoning was completed back in fall of 22. It was designated as an M1 zoning, so it is a permissive use to have the heavy equipment repair in that. So going back to that report, it did indicate all of the driveway spacings that Catherine had gone through. The one thing I'd like to clarify in there that wasn't clarified enough in my mind was the 660 feet is to a full movement driveway as opposed to a right in, right out. That spacing from the signal is only 330 feet. So what we were looking at was a successive driveway condition as stipulated by ACHD at the 380 feet, is the way we were interpreting it at the time. So slides here. So I had also included the same image that Catherine did, just the jewel box for the building, the main entrance there on the southwest corner. Gone through the annexation. So just showing it does go all the way out to the center of I-84. The site plan that we had submitted, you can see the darker fire lane wrapping all the way around. That is a 26-foot wide fire lane as required by the fire code for a building in excess of 30 feet in height. So they can get the ladder truck up onto the roof and fight the fire. So backing up a little bit, I'd like to talk through some of the design considerations that we had gone through when looking at the site plan creation. So one of the main things was the easy access for people bringing in equipment to be repaired, deliveries, any new equipment that's being sold and going out on the flatbeds or the low boys. The access at South Gigabit provides an excellent way because we believe that most of the traffic will be coming in from the south side of South Federal Way into this facility. Because it is a repair shop, we needed to provide a security fence all the way around the entire shop bay because it's possible that that large piece of equipment is hanging out the bay doors and a part is on order. It's 5 o'clock. It's time to go home anyway. So we're going to need to run a fence all the way around that back side. So something to keep track of. The yard up there on the north side, some of the other facilities. Go back to this one. So here's an image of Modern Machinery in Kent, Washington. It's a little bit larger site than what we're dealing with. You can see that there is the 2 driveways wrapping around, but you can see how many pieces of equipment are there waiting to be sold, to be repaired, and how congested these sites become. So back to the site plan real quick. So as I mentioned, I got the fire lane wrapping all the way around to get that access. That same fire lane routing would be utilized for any semis that are bringing in equipment or parts. So we've got you can see on the bottom left of the building there, the southwest corner, there is a loading dock as well as all the refuse containers, those types of things. We can provide the screening around those. We also have the parts corner right there that would have an at-grade location. So anybody coming in with the FedEx truck or something like that could easily drop that equipment and drive or pick it up. So one of the main considerations that we had looked at was creating that entrance towards the jewel box of the building from that southwest corner. Because the entire northern end of the project is basically fenced because it is the heavy equipment. We're trying to create a separation between the personnel and any of the passenger cars coming in from the heavy equipment that they're bringing in to get repaired. So we had designed the site so that the fencing would start at the southern property line and tie into the southwest corner of the building. And the parking lot and everything that you see out there near South Gigabit, south and east side of the building is fully open to the street. So no visual obstructions and a very welcoming entrance for the customers and that type of thing. And then the main thing was to separate where the customers get to go so that nobody is walking behind the piece of equipment that may need that backup beeper repaired and that type of thing. Looking through some of the policies that ACHD provided back to us in their annexation letter, the ones that Catherine had already gone through, the separation distance, those types of things. One of the things that they looked at was a driveway width that were limited to the 36 feet. And then that's something that we'll work out with them as we move forward. But it could affect our site quite a bit. So I'd like to back up at this point and kind of consider some of the equipment that comes into this site. And the largest piece of equipment that they service and rent out or sell is a large rock crusher. That vehicle, just to be able to transport it on the road and make it legal due to the spacing of the axles, that trailer is 112 feet long. So they would come in at South Gigabit and circulate, in our mind anyway, around the building, kind of following that path of the fire lane. You can see that we have included, we've got 57 pieces of equipment in here, as well as a lot of the attachments. So this site isn't even fully loaded up in relation to some of the other facilities that Modern Machinery has throughout the country. That very heavy vehicle has the 11 axles, has 2 hinge points in the back, so it cannot back up. It's forward, or they have to unload that equipment, at which point they can kind of dismantle the trailer a little bit and be able to back it up. But it's a very large item that was driving this entire design. And to be able to come in from South Gigabit, and you can see that they're even driving over the median. We were just designing that as a decorative concrete, but of the same thickness. So guide the cars, but allow the truck to drive over the top. Circulating around the building, so they need to get in a straight line to be able to drop the equipment off. And so they would pull to the back of the building, align that, drop off the rock crusher, and that they can raise the axles and drive away. But we had designed all of this so that they would circulate and be aimed back southbound on South Federal Way to get back to the highway as quickly as possible. So we had looked at a couple other conditions in here. You can see this scheme, as Catherine was indicating, that there is a lot of room up on the north side. This is prior to any additions being done to the building. But you can see how difficult it is to manipulate this truck through there. And at this scale, I mean, this site plan is at a 1:50, I believe. And it's amazing how much room those trucks take up. But I'd like to draw your attention to the outbound portion of that turning movement. That truck ends up going and blocking all of the oncoming traffic for both the left turn lane as well as the northbound lane for South Federal Way. So the pilot vehicles would need to control that, all of those cars, get that out of the way. And obviously this wouldn't occur during any peak hour movements for Micron or anything like that, but it is still a big blockage of that roadway. And then going back to the other one, we can see that it is still taking up both lanes, but at least it's not taking up a left turn through lane and partially blocking or potentially blocking that right turn movement going towards Micron. Got another one here where we attempted to route the vehicle through and get it back out. But actually, this one isn't even the 112-foot truck. This is the standard 67-foot wheelbase semi-tractor trailer. You can see the turning movement going back out at South Federal Way and Gigabit. They're taking out all of the lanes. So it's going to be almost impossible for them to get out without that southern driveway. So we can modify the spacing to get that 380 feet for the successive driveways and get that to meet as close as possible to the next one to the south as well. Just wanted to point out the justification of the reasons why we designed the site plan the way we did. And go from there. The traffic engineer did analyze all this in his report. He did indicate that it does not meet the thresholds. We just don't have the amount of traffic. But with the size of this truck, he did recommend that it be approved and gave various reasons. I assume all of you had received a copy of that traffic study as well. So I won't bore you with that too much. But he also indicated that having a second access on South Federal Way reduces site traffic through Gigabit Lane intersection and improves operations slightly. In his report, he indicated that as Micron continues to expand, that traffic signal itself is going lower and lower on the level of service. And a lot of us know that as that level of service drops, that means we're getting more and more impatient and we're willing to put ourselves at risk because we can't sit there any longer. So even a slight reduction of getting these larger vehicles in a southbound movement without having to wait at the traffic light or have somebody block the traffic and get out is preferred. So the owner and the design team feel the site plan as provided in the application is the best that we can do for the site. The secondary access point provides access for the fire department, creates an easy way for people coming in passenger cars to bypass the heavy construction equipment being repaired and moved around in the back, allows them easy access to the main entrance of the facility. And we feel this is the best condition both for Modern Machinery and for all of our customers. So the ask of this committee from us would be to remove that site-specific condition that was item number 1B to close the proposed secondary driveway onto South Federal Way and to allow us to move forward with that based on just the equipment that is coming in and out as the justification for that. Doing our research, we did look around and see that there is a lot of other facilities up to the north that, and maybe they have much larger daily traffic. But there's quite a few of them. If you look up to the north, that the spacing between the driveways appears to be about 60 feet. Not that that's a justification for us to do it, but just wanted to point out our research as well. One of the other things in the staff report that we would just like to get clarification on is item number 24 that states that all parking and driveways shall be paved and striped. We wanted to point out that our service yard is just going to be base course. There is a big concrete apron at the doors so that the equipment can be in and outside of those doors. They can get the heavy jacks and things over there and do the work on the vehicles. We wanted to point out that the weight of these vehicles will crush concrete very quickly. Those very rigid tires or the tracks for the various equipment. Just the industrial use destroys the concrete. We've talked through it with them. They've considered putting in kind of railroad ties as a way to allow the vehicles to ride on that. Even those wear down, the concrete in between wears down in time and becomes a tripping hazard and that type of thing for the employees. So the preferred option for us is just to use a road base. They've got the equipment out there that they can reshape it as needed. And then they're more than willing to do that as time goes on. So that's the main things that I wanted to talk about today. Should have stopped on my ask page here. Stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith. I believe it shows up on here, but I just want to clarify that you've got everything north of the public parking lot fence, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, right where it necks down and becomes the shop base, so you can see the wider part of the building. That's where the fence would cut across right in those islands out towards South Federal Way. And to the south, you can see all the keynotes right along the edge of the public parking where it turns to the gravel in the back, the base course.
Okay. And what is the apron material there at the large entrance?
Because of the turning movement and the weight of the vehicles, we anticipated anything right out there in the driveways to be fully concrete.
Okay. Because you've got the public access on the south side, assuming this layout, is that a full access driveway that you're proposing on the south?
We would prefer a full access.
Everyone would always prefer a full access.
In discussions with the owner, if a right in, right out is offered up, but we would prefer to push for the full access, just so that the visitors and any of the patrons can get access quickly without going in through the service area of the facility.
Right. That's all I have question-wise.
Good. Other members have
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Mr.
I,
Sutton.
it's kind of piggybacking on those same questions. Did you talk to ACHD about converting that southern entrance to right in, right out, and they'd allow that there? That's just in their policy. I know that successive driveways, but did they state that to you that they would be able to support it if it was right in, right out?
In early discussions with them, they were worried about the 380 feet of the successive driveways. And going back and reading their report during the annexation, that's when the 330 feet to the right in, right out from the intersection, or the 660 to the full movement driveway, what was provided to us.
Yeah, and then kind of following up on that, and again, sort of touching on what committee member Erstad was saying.
Mhm.
So if that was right in, right out, I'm assuming your customers not bringing heavy equipment, if they're headed southbound on Federal Way, would drive past Gigabit and turn right into that southern entry.
I would expect if they're bringing equipment in, they would still turn at.
Right, but if they were coming to without equipment with them, with just a car,
Correct.
or so they'd turn in
Correct.
on the right, but then leaving, they would have to turn right, go down, get on to the freeway essentially,
Right.
right, to go back north,
Um,
or turn around somewhere on the road south of here.
Or drive over to the light at Gigabit and then make the
Could,
north,
and
the left turn movement there.
so that fenced area during business hours will be open for public use to go in and out?
Because the customers aren't kind of forced into one driveway, they could come in through the South Gigabit
Okay.
light. It is our preference that they would come in directly from the southern entrance, but
Mhm.
I mean, people do what they do. If
Yeah.
it's the first time there, then they're gonna go to the signal because it's right there at the building.
And do you anticipate most of your customer traffic that does, again, not bringing heavy equipment would come from the north, like from in town, drive out there? Or do you anticipate a lot of it coming from the south side?
In our research, it's more of a regional facility.
Mhm.
So, and we would expect that most people would be coming from the south.
From the Eisenman interchange there with the
Yes.
freeway? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. that's all I have. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Simple, any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Excuse me. Have you looked at putting the entrance and exits further north from how you had them originally? So that they're still far apart or they're further apart? Does that make sense?
So we had gone through various iterations of this site plan. Initially, we had 3 driveways, each at the 380 feet apart per ACHD's successive driveway requirements. Didn't see the need for that driveway up at the north. When it was subdivided, that is a separate parcel, so it would be required to have that driveway. That's what the study was all about. But because that becomes the parts area and then the storage of the vehicles, having a driveway further north didn't help us. I think your ultimate question is, could we move the southern driveway further north a little bit? And I think that, we were trying to comply with the 380-foot successive driveways, and we're right at that 385-ish. And keeping track of that driveway to the south of us at that 375-ish range. So, I mean, we could adjust that driveway location, or at least how it's perceived at the center line of that, so that we are as close as possible to meeting the 380 and 380.
Thank you.
But that was the intent, was we were trying to hit the 380 and from the get-go.
And can you clarify, would the trucks come in the northern, are we looking north?
Mhm.
Yes, sorry, I see that. So the idea is to separate the trucks and the non-truck traffic.
Mhm.
My concern is that, I assume ACHD already looked at this, to make sure that any trucks that are exiting don't obscure the view of any cars that might be exiting.
Yeah, and there was information in the ACHD about the site triangles.
Uh-huh.
Typically, when the vehicles are moving, they block the view. So we have our driveways set back far enough. Typically, we need to be 15 feet back from the curb line to where the driver is sitting, so they can look both ways and get that clear sight triangle to know whether there's oncoming traffic or not. We're back far enough at both entrances for that. But
Thank you.
yeah,
No, that
I don't think that we ever analyze it with the trucks blocking it as they're moving. 'Cause, yeah, we just can't see through the trucks.
Yeah.
Through the cars, yes, we can see through the glass, but not always.
You mind bringing up the largest truck exhibit, please? Thanks. Have you guys looked at a ride out only on the south exit as an option? Because it might still allow for this truck, but still meet more of the standards of ACHD.
If we're meeting the 330-foot separation from the light, what would be wrong with the right in, right out? I mean, we did consider it. The hard part is it's a really big driveway, and unless that gate is closed, It's going to be used by somebody. And even if if it were a right in, right out, you can see from this exhibit here that vehicle leaving still needs to cross the center line to get out, the 112-foot long truck. This is very infrequent, but this is the vehicle that we need to design around for the facility. With that vehicle needing to cross that center, we couldn't use the little delineators or build a little concrete turn in, a little, I call it a pork chop in the road that guides the cars, because this truck needs to go over it to get there.
Yeah, understood. That's why I was thinking the ride out maybe only where it could dedicate the design towards this largest truck, or it looks like at that little pork chop island that's below the parking. The truck could maybe swing a little farther to the north to make a more drastic turn to the south. But yeah, ultimately, a lot of this is in ACHD's purview, and we don't have a whole lot of more additional information other than their guidelines. So we're just looking over the different options. So appreciate your input.
I understand. Yeah, the reason that we're here is that they asked us to work with you guys, and if it was okay with you, then they would consider it. So yeah, any additional access we can get over there, as you can see, it makes it so much better for the facility to have that circulating through. I mean, my preference would be if we're going to go that route, that we propose the right in, right out, so that those passenger cars can easily get in and out and get access to that kind of public portion of the site.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Dean.
Just to clarify, and apologize if you've already answered this, but you've picked the worst case scenario with your large trailer to demonstrate the turning radiuses and all that. Frequency of that type of vehicle actually being on that lot anticipated is?
Say every 3 months. There's no fixed number to that.
Understand.
They move those around to whoever the nearest customer that's going to need it or where it came from amongst their various facilities. So infrequent, but the exact duration, it's unknown.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? No, thank you. Is there any members of the public wishing to testify on this item tonight? Seeing none in person, any online, Josh? Thank you. Any last questions for the applicant? The applicant, anything else you'd like to say? Okay, we'll close the public portion of this and bring it back to the committee for discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Stat.
I'll defer to Committee Member Aguilar.
Okay.
I have quite a few comments. First, just based on the frequency alone, I don't think it justifies us overriding and undermining ACHD's review. Second, Micron's coming. That street, Federal Way, is going to probably get really messy here really quick, like in the next few months, if it hasn't already. And I think if we allow this, I think it's going to create future problems for that street. I hope the storage yard is paved. It's my understanding that having the proposed surface is not typical or allowed in any other type of projects and parking lots. And especially with its proximity to the interstate, this whole corridor has unfortunately been neglected. And it's a gateway into the city. And I think it would be really unsightly. And it's unfortunately, I wish we could have some trees along the fence, along the freeway there. To screen some of that. It's that whole corridor is, not very nice. And I think maybe with the new ordinance coming down the road, that will change. And I have no issues with the building architecturally. I'm fine with the building architecturally. And I want to stand with this, with the staff report, and I'm in agreement with the staff.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar.
Thank you.
Mr. Stad, did you have some other comments?
I did, and I think to address committee member Aguilar's points, I think it's actually is the idea that Micron is coming, this road is going to get busier, we're going to have more northbound traffic coming along here, is actually a pretty convincing argument in favor of allowing a secondary access point so that we have fewer trucks trying to circulate out, make a huge right-hand turn across lanes of traffic, even with the smaller trailers. I think, you know, especially if it is limited to a right in, right out on the south end, that makes sense to further limit the amount of cross median travel as these trailers exit. This is an allowed use in the zone, and people with a slightly higher pay grade than our own have decided what the zone is and what the uses allowed in them are. So, you know, we need to be cognizant of the uses and the needs within the zone. I think by the same token, you know, if this building were to expand further to the north and it's allowed to, we would have to have this conversation all over again later down the line, because there would not be the ability to turn a semi around regardless. And really at the end of the day, because of our weird little power dynamic with ACHD, this isn't our final call. That we can remove this condition of approval from design review, but you're still going to have to go get ACHD to sign off on it. And, you know, everyone knows that's a tough road to hoe. So I am personally in favor of removing this condition of approval and saying, good luck.
Other thoughts, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Simple.
I think I'm kind of somewhere in between the two. I think the reason I asked the question about where your traffic primarily comes from is because I think a right in, right out on the south makes some sense here. Primarily to funnel traffic to the south to get them onto the freeway when they're, you know, leaving. And also to avoid more conflicts at that signalized intersection when Micron expands and everything else. So I think that, I don't know if we can modify the condition to be remove or close the driveway or obtain ACHD approval for a right in, right out. I feel like would be a good compromise. I do agree with committee member Aguilar that it would be really nice to see some landscape buffering along the I-84 corridor. Just to reiterate what she said, it's been neglected since it's been developed out there. And it is challenging to drive into the city from the southeast, and you don't get a great impression sometimes out here. So while I don't necessarily want to condition it because it's not a requirement, I would, you know, advise the applicant to, you know, if they can find it in a way to put some trees out there, it'd be great. That's kind of my stance on it, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Simple.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to clarify with staff, the paving at the north end of this lot, are they demonstrating on their plans that it is not paved and you are requiring pavement? Or it shows that it's paved and they're asking that it not be paved? Because I would think that would be a condition of approval if there was some contradiction there.
Mr. Chairman, Committee Member Rudine, so what the ordinance says is that service yards, if they are enclosed by an opaque fence, can be a gravel surface. What cannot be is a parking lot. So we distinguish between vehicular use areas, so customer parking, employee parking, actual vehicle travel areas, and the aprons around the building must be paved. Fully enclosed by opaque fencing, service yards can be gravel in the industrial zones. There is a specific exception in the parking ordinance for that.
And
And I believe that's what I'll let Catherine address what they're proposing, but that's what the ordinance says.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that that they must be proposing what is acceptable to you on that stand.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? My side, the surface material, I understand with the applicants bringing, unloading and loading vehicles, tears up asphalt and concrete on that kind of scale of equipment. So I don't have a problem, and I think that's the appropriate material for the particular use. And I think they have hardscape, concrete and asphalt and all the other areas. Seems like maybe the site's just a tad bit small. And that's probably part of the problem with circulation. With that, I think I would probably lean towards committee member Simple was proposing, where they could get some right in, right out access with approval from ACHD, while keeping the primary entry aligned with gigabit. So my thoughts, comments? Anybody else? If not, I'd be.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I would ask Mr. Sample to go ahead and make a motion and revolve it around what he had said.
Sorry.
Yep.
Mr. Chair and Member Simple. I've somehow gotten lost in all of the recommendations and what staff is asking. So can you
Mr.
make
Chair.
that clear in your?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, well, and Mr. Chair, committee member Zuckerman, it's, I think, so the main entry is at gigabit, right? And that's the full access signalized entry. So the south one, I'm just saying, like, the condition right now says to close that driveway on the south. But I guess my thought was that, you know, if they could, we could potentially modify that condition to read how it reads, or obtain ACHD approval for right in, right out for the south entry that meets their separation requirements. I think it's kind of where I was leaning. So does that clarify?
Thank
Okay.
you.
So for that, I will move to approve DRH 23-00231 as recommended in the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommended conditions of approval, with a modification to condition B to state close the proposed second driveway onto South Federal Way located 385 feet south of Gigabit Lane, or obtain Ada County Highway District approval for a right-in, right-out driveway onto South Federal Way located a minimum of 380 feet from the South Gigabit Lane entry and the driveway located south of the subject property.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Josh, I believe the ACHD requirement for the right in, right out is 330. So I'm in agreement with your proposed change, but I think if we do the 385, we're making it more stringent than what the ACHD policy is my understanding.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
would,
just simple. Would you like to revise?
do I need
your
to make,
application?
do I need to make a different motion or revise the condition? Okay, so I'll revise condition B to state as it states, or obtain ACHD approval for right in, right out driveway that meets the separation requirements of their policy from any adjacent driveway.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, if I were to change anything, it would be to allow a 3/4 turn driveway so that someone cannot exit the site and head northbound, but we can have northbound traffic entering the site. But
Mr. Chair, so I guess my thought on that is that most of the traffic entering this with trucks is coming from the south, and they're not going to enter into the south entrance. And if a customer is coming in, they can turn left into that main entry. I know it goes into the yard, but it's going to be open during business hours. And so then they could come and go that way or out of the south entry during business hours. Employees, I think, are going to be able to use the gigabit entry, whether the business is open or not. So that was my thought process. That clarifies it.
Fair enough.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Semple,
Aye.
Rudine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Zuckerman,
Aye.
Erstad,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
And just for clarification, item number 3, DRH 23-00222, location is 3159 West State Street, has been withdrawn. And that concludes our meeting tonight, and we are adjourned. Thank you.